Hi there.
Yeah, that was their excuse for a while. That means you could do it, but you could only do it once in a while. But you had to let him know ahead of time that he was going to drive it around the parking lot. You can only just go around and sort of go around. Back park over here, once around the parking lot here.
Okay, and my name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the chairperson for the Executive Director, for the Children's Coalition Incorporated. We are here today at the Veterans Memorial Center on Merritt Island, Florida. And today is November the 16th, 2019. And sir, what is your name?
John Thiers.
Okay, Mr. Thiers. When were you born?
April 8th, 1963.
Okay, and what is your address?
6175 Corning Road in Port St. John, Florida.
Okay, and what branch of the service were you in?
Navy.
Okay, when did you serve?
From September 1981 to September 1987.
Okay, and where did you enlist?
I enlisted in Utah.
Is that where you were living at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
I enlisted in Utah, but I actually entered the service from New Jersey. Because I moved between the end of my senior year of high school and the time that I went in.
Oh, okay. All right. That works. What were you doing before you went into service?
High school.
Uh-huh. And so after you enlisted in Utah, where did you go to basic training?
I went to Recruit Training Command in San Diego, California.
Uh-huh. Why did you choose that branch of the service?
Because my friend told me that it'd be better than sleeping in ditches and if I joined the Army of the Marines.
Hey, that's a reason. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I'm not knocking you. Okay. So where did you go to basic training?
San Diego, California.
San Diego?
San Diego.
San Diego. Right, okay. And how long was basic training?
8 weeks.
What was it like?
Like basic training, they break you down to build you back up.
Okay, all right.
So that way you have a known quantity to start with.
Okay. All right, so how did you get through it? How'd you manage? What was your motivation?
My motivation was just to get through it, and I realized that it was going to be 8 weeks of a head game, and that they were there to break you down as far as they could and put you back together again the way that they wanted you. And once you realize that, it's just a matter of gutting it out.
Okay. Where did you, so after that 8 weeks, where did you go for your rate?
Yes, rating. went to
some new jargon here. Go ahead.
Went to Great Lakes, Illinois, to gas turbine A school and C school.
What was that?
Gas turbine A school and C school.
And what was this?
This is basically a jet engine mechanic, but I didn't work on aircraft. It's the gas turbines I worked on are used for main propulsion on Spruance class destroyers, Ticonderoga class cruisers, Perry class frigates, and the new Arleigh Burke class destroyers.
Okay, and how long was that training?
About 6 months total.
Wow, 24 weeks. And where was your first duty station?
I was assigned to a pre-commissioning unit for the USS Haler, which is a Spruance class destroyer, the last Spruance class destroyer that the Navy built. It was assigned to Norfolk, Virginia, but during its pre-commissioning time, the ship was being built in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Oh, okay. Your instructors in basic and tech school, how did they treat you? You have any memories of them, or anything in particular?
I remember that my recruit company commander was a boiler technician first class named BT1 DeVoe, and I respect him a great deal. He was a good example. He was no nonsense, taught you what you needed to know, but did not try to sugarcoat it or make it excessively difficult. He was there to do a job, and he got the job done. He's one of the people that I probably respect the most when I was in the military.
Okay. How about your tech school instructors?
They're very good. I actually ended up working with a lot of them. They, after I graduated from my tech schools, a number of my instructors were actually finishing up their shore duty assignments and ended up getting assigned to the same ship that I was. So I probably worked with 3 or 4 of my instructors actually came to my ship with me.
Oh, okay, cool. And I'm not sure, what years did you serve?
1981 through 1987.
Okay. So at your first duty station, tell me about that.
My first duty station was to the pre-commissioning unit for the USS Haler, DD-997. It's a Spruance class destroyer. It was being built in Pascagoula, Mississippi, but we were going to be home ported in Norfolk, Virginia, so half the crew was in Norfolk, Virginia, the other half of the crew was down in Mississippi, and eventually everybody moved down to Mississippi just prior to the ship being commissioned and entering active duty.
And once it went on active duty, where did you go?
We operated mainly out of Norfolk, Virginia was our home port. We went to did a lot of time in the Caribbean, down as far south as the Suez Canal, been to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, St. Thomas, Barbados, San Juan. I did a lot of time in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And then eventually, after a ship is commissioned, you go through a couple of years of shakedown cruising and to make sure that the ship is actually put together properly and is working properly. Basically, work out all the bugs out of the ship and get them fixed. And then we started training to go for our first 6-month deployment. We ended up going to the Indian Ocean for 6 months.
Okay. Any casualties up to this point in school or in basic tech training or up to this point? Anybody get hurt? How about you?
Not to this point, no.
Oh.
We'd had one person on my ship that I did not know committed suicide. So that was so I did not know that person, but it did kind of affect the crew a bit.
Right.
But aside from that, pretty injury-free. We were, like I said, it was a new ship, and everybody was taking care of it well, and everybody was well trained on a ship and the equipment and how things worked, and everybody was paying attention and operating safely. So we, from that perspective, we were doing quite well.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So, okay, so you spent the majority of your tour of duty in the Caribbean?
Yes.
Besides the places that you called out, what other places did you have the opportunity to travel to?
Outside of the Caribbean, going to the Indian Ocean, there aren't a lot of liberty ports. So in our 6-month deployment, it was actually 177 days from the time we pulled out of Norfolk, Virginia, until we pulled back in, and we spent 163 of them, I think it was, at sea. So we didn't hit a lot of ports, but we did stop at Benidorm in. I take that back. We stopped at Palma in Spain on the way to the Indian Ocean. We went through the Suez Canal, operated just outside the Persian Gulf for a long stretch. We got a liberty port in Karachi, Pakistan. We also got a break at a liberty port in Singapore, and then another liberty port on the way back from the Indian Ocean in Benidorm in Spain. And that's, as far as overseas goes, outside of the Caribbean, that's about the extent of the overseas liberty ports that I went to.
Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences while you were in the service. Was it while you were on R&R, while it, or?
No, actually, probably the most one of the most memorable experiences was right after our ship was commissioned, and we were pulled out of Pascagoula, Mississippi, on our way to Norfolk, Virginia. We'd been underway we pulled out in the morning, so we were underway for 4 hours, and we were going to have our very, very first general quarters drill as a commissioned United States naval vessel. And when we went to go to general quarters, they sound the general quarters alarm, and they pass over the ship's loudspeaker. This is a drill, general quarters, all hands man your battle stations. And as soon as they said that, the lights went out and the ship went dead in the water.
Okay.
And here we were, the engineering department on the M division on our ship is all the gas turbine men like me. We take care of making sure the ship moves through the water, and we also provide power to the ship. So as we had probably about 30 people in my division, of which maybe 8 of them had been at sea before. The rest of them were fresh out of school.
Right.
So here we are, a bunch of wet behind the ears gas turbine men in a ship that had just gone dead in the water and had never been on a ship at sea before.
Okay.
Wondering okay, what do we do now, folks?
And the answer.
The answer is it, first off, it gets really dark and really quiet in the engine room.
Right.
And you just go back to the basics and you say, okay, time to start the generator up again. And you start the engine up and figure out what once you get the power back on, you got to figure out what went wrong and why. And it turned out that a couple of weeks before we'd gotten underway, one of the yard workers was doing a test on one of our generators, and they're testing the engine exhaust gas temperature sensors on one of the generators. And when he put it back together again, he didn't tighten everything back up all the way.
Okay.
And things had loosened up, and once the ship had been running for a while, the vibrations shook everything loose, and it gave us an erroneous reading that caused that generator to trip offline, which dumped all the energy requirements on the other running generator, and it couldn't handle all that load all at once, so it decided that I think I'll take a break now too.
There you go.
So we're just kind of stuck on, okay, what do we do? And we got it up and running again pretty quickly, but it was kind of humorous.
Got you. So, at what point were there any casualties throughout your career?
Not really related to my service or anything like that, but one time on Liberty, I was had in a motorcycle accident, and I broke my arm.
Oh, okay. Where were you?
I was in Norfolk, Virginia, and just went into a turn a little too fast and realized I'm going to be crashing here in a second. And
Okay.
But at that time, that's actually probably one of the luckiest breaks that I've had, because at the time I was not happy with being on my ship, and I was trying to get a transfer, and they weren't letting me transfer.
Oh.
So I ended up getting a transfer to the hospital.
Right.
I go, okay, well, this works.
Did you get your transfer after that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you transfer to?
I ended up working, I was on limited duty for almost a year, and I was attached to the recreation department for Naval Station Norfolk, and that was a year before I got out.
Oh. So you were there the last year of your service?
In the service as the last.
Just to go back for a minute, you ever see any combat?
No.
Okay, so you were never a prisoner of war.
No.
Good.
Well, unless you count the time I was on the Hailer the last couple of months, but.
Right. Okay. What do you mean with the?
Sometimes it felt like I was at battle with my command to get off the boat.
Got it.
So I kind of felt like a prisoner of war sometimes.
Well, I was going to get to the part about how did you get along with enlisted and officers.
I got along great with the people I worked with.
Okay.
The people I worked for was a mixed bag. Depended on the person.
Right.
Unfortunately, some of the people that I worked for could make my life miserable, and they did.
Right. Did you get any awards, medals, citations?
I got a good conduct medal, surprisingly.
Good. There you go. All right. And how did you stay in touch with your family while you were in service?
United States Postal Service.
Oh, letters.
Yep,
Gotcha.
letters.
Okay. Right.
The occasional phone call if you're overseas. Wasn't like today where we could send email and video chat real time.
Right.
I guess that's a good thing, but just seems strange to me not having had that luxury while I was in.
I understand. I get it. Believe me. How was the food?
Some places better than others. The hospital food was fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The cafeteria on the naval station, it was okay. You could live on it, but Overall, it was good.
Did you have all the supplies that you needed while you were in the service?
Yeah.
Okay. Went over pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Overall, it was a good experience.
That's good. Anything unusual or overly, I mean, besides what you already shared? Anything special that happened? A couple of things that stand out?
Not that I can think of, not off the top of my head.
All right, all right. Did you keep a diary?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So, did you use your GI Bill when you got out of the service at all?
No, I did not. The Montgomery GI Bill, in order to get anything out of it, you had to put something into it, and I did not put anything into it.
Okay.
So I regret that. But being a veteran did give me a little leg up on something. So that's got me to where I'm going, where I am today. So.
Okay, cool. What? Where were you when you separated?
Separated out of Norfolk, Virginia.
Uh-huh. And what were your plans when you separated? What were you thinking about doing? The closer, when you got down those last 6 months, 3 months, what were you thinking about?
I just wanted to get out.
Okay.
I got out and I go, I'll figure it out from there.
Mm-hmm.
I was either going to try to work, use the military training I had and work on gas turbines somewhere, or I was going to find a job somewhere in somewhat related field. And
So what did you do when you got out? Where did you go?
Originally,
Where did you separate? In Norfolk?
I came from Norfolk, Virginia, down to Cocoa, Florida, and I lived with my father for a couple of years while I ended up going to school, and I ended up for about a year. I worked for a subcontractor for the power company, putting telephone poles in the ground. But I ended up getting a job in quality assurance on the space shuttle program.
Oh, really? Wow, fantastic. Did you use you said you went to school, did you use your GI Bill to go to school?
No.
No? Okay, so tell me about that job with the space shuttle.
When I went to school, I got had a degree, could go for a degree in quality assurance. And so I was taking that, and they also had a co-op program, and I applied for that, and the co-op program, they were looking for quality assurance jobs in any companies in the area, and one of them was a space center, and I ended up getting a job with NASA.
Huh, okay. And what was your job, QA?
Yes.
Oh, all right. How long did you do that?
I worked in quality assurance from when I started working at NASA in 1989 until 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. And from there, at the end of the shuttle program, right near the end of the shuttle program, because the shuttle program was stopping, they weren't going to need as many quality assurance folks anymore. I ended up getting a job in logistics and transportation at NASA. And that's what I'm doing now.
Oh, okay. Real okay. So you're still there?
Yes.
So tell me about if you can. I mean, confidentiality, top secret, clearance, But tell us about that job with doing QA for the shuttle.
That's actually pretty interesting. I worked on the solid rocket motors and the external tanks mostly. So I would do receiving inspections for the solid rocket motors that came in from Utah by rail car. I'd go in and actually, physically crawl down the center of the solid rocket motors and inspect the solid rocket propellant for cracks and various defects. And after that, we assemble those pieces, parts, and eventually made an external tank to the solid rocket motors, and then the space shuttle orbiter we mount onto the external tank. was interesting. That's probably the highlight of my life. But
Right. You did about 13, 14 years, huh?
I was actually closer to 20 years. It was 89 to.
Oh, I
Yeah.
mean that. Okay, but then
Yeah.
right. And what was his second? What was it? What do you do today now?
Right now, I work in logistics and transportation. My primary function is I'm the railroad manager at Kennedy Space Center.
Oh, and the railroad manager.
Yes.
That's for the rail that the shuttle.
Yes,
Right.
yes. The Kennedy Space Center is actually when you get into talk about transportation, you talk about modes of transportation,
Right.
and there are 4 generally accepted modes of transportation.
Uh-huh.
I say there are 5.
What's the fifth? What are the 4?
Okay, the 4 modes that people generally acknowledge is roads, airplanes, boats, and trains.
Okay.
The 5th one, space.
Ah. Okay. Right. Well, that's true.
So, but Kennedy Space Center is probably the only place in the world that has access to all 5 modes of transportation in a relatively confined area.
Oh, okay.
So the more modes of transportation you have at a specific place, the more economically viable they are for development. So having a trimodal facility where you have pretty much everybody has access to a road, but when you start hooking it up with either airplanes or trains, that road becomes a little bit more important. If you have access to 3 modes, you're doing really good. 4 modes, it's like you are absolutely fantastic. People love you, and they really want to be able to come into that area because it's quicker to move things from one mode of transportation to another. Mm-hmm. So something coming from a manufacturer can get to a customer quicker if you have access to the more modes, the better. And Kennedy Space Center is probably one of, like I said, it's probably the only place that has access to 5 modes if you include space. But 4 modes, there's probably less than 50 around the world that have access to 4 modes of transportation.
Wow. Okay. By the way, did you hold on to any of your friendships while you were from the military?
Actually, a couple. My best friend from high school who suggested that I should join the Navy instead of sleeping in ditches. I'm still friends with him. I don't have a lot of contact with him, but I still am.
Okay.
And the most important one I have is I met my wife in the Navy.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. All right. So we got your career, and that's a great career. I'm jealous. So anyway, I'm only kidding. How did the military affect your life? You know, how did the experience of serving, what was the payoff?
Overall is probably probably the most important thing that I did. It taught me a little bit of discipline and taught me to appreciate what I have and that I can do things myself but at the same time still rely on others to do their job and get things done.
Okay. How did it affect? How did your military experience influence your thinking about war, about the military in general?
War should be the absolute last resort for any conflict. I don't like the idea of going to war just because you don't like somebody's particular mode of government. I've discovered over the years that it doesn't matter whether you're coming from a communist country or a socialist country or a democratic country or whatever. People are people no matter where you're going, and everybody's really looking for pretty much the same thing. They want to raise their families and survive and do what's right by them. And the conflicts that we have just because of ideology is just so ridiculous that it's, I can't believe some of the things that we get involved with, and we demonize things that really shouldn't be demonized.
Anything else you feel like you may have left out that you want to share with us?
No, that's about it.
Okay. I want to thank you for a great interview, and thank you for your service.
Okay, thank you.